The two armies stand, face to face, on the countryside. The silence broken only by the wind rustling the long grass on the rolling plains, and the nervous rustling of armor. The warlord of the opposing army of orcs and wild men steps forward, his shoulders wreathed in bones and skins.
Bring forth your champion! Zargnak the All-Destroyer will crush them in whatever trial you choose, and then we will overrun your lands and swallow your peoples whole.
You look at your party, the ragtag group of misfits you've gathered along the way to this point, and grin. While they might have your forces outnumbered and outforced, you know that their culture is honor-bound to this tradition of opposing champions. The city behind you would not stand a chance if the wild men were to walk through it. But you have a plan. Looking back at the militia leader, you nod and step forward. Your forces are great, and your power is immense, leader of the wild men. To oppose you would be folly. The leader snarls a laugh.
You mean to surrender to us so easily?
Oh no, you reply. I merely wish to spare you the embarrassment of being defeated by our champion. Please, let us show you hospitality. As you say so, you motion toward a tall, toned individual, wearing a wide-brimmed hat that covers his eyes, and a set of loose flowing wraps. A sudden murmur ripples through the opposing forces, and the leader puffs out his chest.
You would think your weak, frail champion could best the likes of the All-Destroyer? You are a fool, and my army will dance on your ancestors' graves for it.
You sigh and shrug. If you insist on it, then a competition of wrestling. No weapons, just raw strength. Who pins their opponent first wins. The cry of excitement runs through the wild men, and a burly man with muscles that ripple like ocean waves steps forward, shrugging off his pauldrons and letting them fall to the ground with a heavy thud. You nod, and your companion walks forward, tossing you the hat that covers his eyes. The sun overhead gleams off the bear tattoos on his head, and he rolls his shoulders back. You fidget with the ring on your finger, a small piece of amber encasing a petrified eye, and make a flourishing hand gesture. 1 for sorrow, 2 for the fight, 3 for weakness, and 4 for blight, you say lowly, and meet the eyes of their champion. Let the competition begin! Submission or pin to be the victor. And, Dragor, try not to kill your opponent this time. Dragor and Zargnak stand face to face, Zargnak standing a full foot taller than your champion Dragor. He leans down and says something that might have been intended to be intimidating. Dragor responds by grabbing the front of the huge man's belt and heaving upwards, bringing him off his feet and slamming him to the ground on his back. You can see the veins on Dragor's body pulse, can see the altered state he's entered. The two gathered armies erupt in cheers and jeers and screams. Zargnak scrambles to his feet, and the two begin to wrestle. Every time the grapple begins, however, somehow Dragor comes out on top and throws the huge man to the ground. Must not be your lucky day, Dragor says, turning to the crowd with a flourish. With one last shoot, he sweeps both legs of his opponent and wraps him in a complicated pin. A hush falls over the crowds as Zargnak struggles to free himself, but Dragor's grip does not relent. Finally, through gritted teeth, the words fall from the lips of the large man.
I resign.
Hex! What a great low-level spell for stuff like this. Basically, you choose a creature within 60 feet of you and choose any ability score. Any checks that they make with that ability score instantly have disadvantage. And additionally, you do extra damage to them every time you hit them with an attack. That means any kind of attack. If your Hex target dies during the duration of the spell, you can move the Hex to someone else within range. as a bonus action. The important part for this story is the disadvantage, though, because grappling uses an attack action, but is not itself an attack. Your barbarian monk already has advantage on his strength checks while raging, but with Hex giving the opponent disadvantage, there is no reason that your angry boy should ever come out anywhere but on top of a grapple check. This synergy is insane and makes grappling a stupid good technique for a one-on-one fight. Even outside of that, there's tons of places where having a full hour of disadvantage on an ability check would be amazing for you. Imagine fleeing up the side of a mountain, climbing recklessly and dangerously while your assailant does the same. A quick hex, and suddenly they're shit at climbing, and they are way more likely to tumble back down into the rocky abyss. You're fighting a wizard who's trying to keep one of your party members turned into a gecko with his polymorph spell. A little bit of Hex, and suddenly his concentration checks become really difficult for him, and you have your ranger back, and oh, now the wizard is full of arrows. You and the evil vizier are trying to convince the king of differing things regarding the ambassadors that are visiting. The vizier says that they should be detained and executed, which would be a declaration of war. A little bit of the old black magic, and suddenly they trip over their words, and they can't focus, and their trains of thought are all over the place, and they can't persuade the king, while your eloquence sways the decision towards peace and amiability and anti-war. And all of this has nothing to do with the extra damage that you get. You deal an extra d6 necrotic damage with each time that you hit the person that you've hexed. So at low levels, this is a great way to make sure that you can damage something, even if it has resistance to non-magical damage types. Your dagger might not cut them, but the necrotic damage will make them rot where it would have cut. Imagine if you were a bard and you stole this spell with magical secrets. Then not only would you have Hex on them, but you'd have cutting words to further screw them over, and bardic inspiration to make your allies the best at the thing. Fuck whatever they're doing. You will win using math spite. Hex may not seem like the best spell for people who are looking to maximize their damage output or whatever, but a creative player can make use of any spell to an astounding effect, including Hex. And even better, high-level spell slots strengthen the amount of time you can concentrate on the spell up to 24 hours. This is a great way to make someone have a really goddamn bad day. Hex is verbal, somatic, and material, the petrified eye of a newt, so put it in your ring like they had in the story, and then you won't ever have to deal with like, oh, let me get my wand out, or let me do some stuff with my component pouch, or whatever like that. You just always have it out, so it doesn't even look weird when you say like a little thing. Range is 90 feet. That's pretty good. You cast it as a bonus action, and you can move it as a bonus action. And the only way to get rid of it is to either have the spell run out, to have the person who cast it lose their concentration or die, or to use Remove Curse on the person who's affected by it. And Remove Curse is like a pretty hefty spell to get rid of something like Hex, so it's harder to get rid of than you think. I think it's a really good spell, and I think you could make a lot of good stuff out of it. Thank you guys for watching so much. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, the like and subscribe buttons are just below the video. You know what to do with them. There's also my socials, that's the Facebook and Twitter, that are in the description box. There's a Discord down there as well. Since everyone is at home right now, I'm in my Discord a lot more often, so you can hop in on there and be like, yo, and I will be like, yo, back. You can share my stuff. It would mean so much to me if you showed this to somebody, be like, hey, you do D&D, this might be a thing that you like. Thank you guys again for watching, and I will see you next time.